The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be. Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. How's everybody doing? SK, how are you doing? Nom, how's your Wednesday?
I was doing wonderful until I looked up at the destination, realized that you have this streaming out to your personal X account and not the podcast account.
Crap. Sorry, guys.
And I tried to add it, and we've got a limit of 3 streams.
Yeah, you can't. Well, how about this? One of you guys go from the X account and share my live out onto the X account.
I'll do it. I can do it.
This is what happens when we have too many chiefs in the tent or in the teepee, or too many cooks in the kitchen trying to set up destinations and stuff. I just pushed the wrong button. I'm sorry.
You need to remove that destination.
I don't know if you can. That's the problem. I've tried to, because there's like a dozen of them on there that we don't use anymore. Anyway, what's up, everybody in the comments? I see you, Tough Desi. Is that Tough Desi? Is that it? I see you, Cat Sass. Who's Cat Sass? Cat Sass is in here every stinking night, and we love it. We appreciate you. I see JP Roll Call. He's in here all the time, he or she.
Yep.
We thank you guys for continuing to show up and to support this podcast. This has been a blast for us, at least for me. I'm having so much fun doing this. It's almost like we spend so much time preparing for these podcasts that I'm almost forgetting to make actual content out on TikTok and other places. So I'll have to get back to that again. But I'm having a blast doing this, and we have an absolutely incredible show for you tonight. This is going to be, I think, one of our best.
Do you know that this is our 30th episode?
30 episodes. Yeah.
Wow. It feels like it's gone so fast.
Yeah.
Well, if we were doing more of these a week, it would have gone. I mean, we'd probably be at 60 or 75 by now, which, by the way, we've started having some back channel conversations about how we can do this more frequently or longer. Because one of the things that I struggle with is the mountain of information that we want to talk about every one of these shows. I think about 2 hours ago, I had to send a text to the group and was like, guys, we got to stop. We can't, there's nothing else we can fit into this conversation. So we may try to figure out how we can do more of this. I don't know if it's every night. I don't know what it is, but we need to do it because the amount of information that is coming out about the grand collusion conspiracy, the color revolution, how they all tie together, Charlie Kirk, the efforts to take out people like Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump's most trusted team members is in overdrive at this point. The color revolutionists are at a place right now where they are desperate to wrestle control of very important parts of the government away from Donald Trump so that they can protect their ongoing color revolution. And I'm convinced that that is exactly what is happening with this fake story of the double tap of the Venezuelan narco-terrorist drug boat.
Yeah.
Everything that you're seeing, and we've got a mountain of information to share with you, everything that you're seeing right now is a continuation of the grand conspiracy, all designed at this point to protect the color revolution.
Yeah.
I don't know how better to summarize this.
There is no better way to summarize this. Every single arrow you're seeing thrown right now exists solely to protect the groups that are engaged in the color revolution. And I want to make something clear. If you think the Trump administration is not fully aware of that, they are. They know exactly what is happening. You're not going to see Trump move off of Hegseth. You're not going to see Trump move off of Cash Patel or Dan Bongino or Pam Bondi. Any of the panicans that are out there trying to make you seem like Pam Bondi's not doing her job or Cash Patel's not doing their job. All the anonymous sources, they are all designed. And I do mean designed because they are well orchestrated and well choreographed. They are all designed to remove the people that are standing between President Trump, the Constitution, and the government from the color revolutionists. And make no mistake about it, the United States military is the biggest shield that this country has against these color revolutionists, and they know it.
That's
Because
right.
they don't give a damn about double taps. They don't give a damn about knocking out Venezuelan drug boats in the Caribbean. They don't care about that at all. What they do care about is President Trump and Pete Hegseth having control of the military. That's it. That's all this is about.
That's absolutely right. I think at the end of this show, I'm hoping that we can answer one very important question. And I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I don't like to bury the lead. We may have just given you the answer up front, but here's the question I want everyone in the comments and everyone in the audience to start thinking about as you're watching this effort to take Pete Hegseth out. Why does the left fear this man so much? Because he's not low-hanging fruit. I mean, he is effective to the point that he has to be the one that they take out. And the question is why? And I think we're going to be able to demonstrate through the next hour and however long we go that the reason is because Pete Hegseth in control of the military is the thing that's going to stop them from being successful in their color revolution.
Well, didn't they try to make the Marines a part of another branch of the military at one point in time under the Democrats? Weren't they trying to really mess with the military? And aren't the Marines the ones that are their chain of command, and they're more traditional, I would say? Like the whole don't ask, don't tell stuff came about, and the military kind of started changing a little bit. And didn't the Marines still kind of stay the Marines?
Well, the Marine Corps has always been a department of the Navy, right? They're not their own branch of service. They are, but they roll up under a department of the Navy. It always has been since 1775 when they were founded. But yeah, the don't ask, don't tell, that whole thing. None of us gave a shit. Listen, I was in from 98 to 2006. We didn't care, right? I don't know when that law was changed. It was under Clinton. No one gave a damn about it. But I'm going to tell you right now, military standards are a thing. And they never stopped being a thing in the Marine Corps. They may have stopped in the Air Force and Navy and the Army, but they didn't, and they won't stop in the Marine Corps. There's nothing you can do about that. It's just not the culture.
Exactly.
Not the
And
culture.
I think that's one of the things, because I feel like they've tried to co-opt the military, and with all the DEI stuff and all the things that have been going on. And Pete Hegseth is working to reverse all of that. And they aren't going to be able to co-opt the military if they don't have that control.
If you can destroy the entire framework of discipline in the ranks of the military, then the entire fabric of what makes the military effective starts to crumble. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can lower standards is the first attack against this time-honored tradition that makes our military so much more effective than everybody else. It's this discipline that's instilled from day one when you step off the bus and you stand on those yellow footprints. It is the thing that they drill into you, because that discipline is what allows you to be a killing machine. And the minute you start peeling that away by reducing standards, everything else is free game. Everything.
Well, reducing standards is an attempt to create individualism in the military. Mm-hmm. And with individualism, without unit cohesion, without discipline, you don't have lethality. You simply can't, because you're going to have exactly what the Mark Kellys and the Alyssa Slotkins of the world are trying to create. You're going to have a million different people with different opinions about what's legal, what's not legal, what they want to do, what they don't want to do. And then, the game's all over. So, they know exactly what they're doing. So before we move this ball forward, I put a note at the top of the outline here. Any of you old school Bongino folks, right? He used to tell you all the time, and we say it too quite a bit, PatriotDad and I, remember the names, remember the names, remember the names. This is going to be a remember the names episode, okay? And you know all the names, but you have to remember how they are interwoven. Because what we're getting ready to tell you today, the color revolution, the coup, the years-long seditious conspiracy never ended. It's still going. Nope. And it's still the same people. And we're going to name the names.
It's still the same people. So I want to back up a little bit. I want to take us back just a little bit. We're going to go a little bit higher, look at this from a slightly different angle than what I think most people are caught up in today's ecosystem. Because one of the problems with a rapidly moving media cycle is it is very easy to get fixated on whatever the media is talking about in the moment and then spending an hour talking about that topic. But we need to take a step back so that everyone can understand how we got to where we are today. So Bongino used to say this all the time. We don't want to bury the lead. So I want to pull out 3 very important events that have occurred over the last couple of months that put the Democrats in a position where they felt like they were comfortable enough and had to move to step 6 and eventually step 7 of the color revolution steps. So the 3 things that happened, first of all, the Epstein disaster backfired on them. They thought they had Donald Trump and the Trump administration right where they wanted them with Jeffrey Epstein. And then suddenly the Republican Party, the Oversight Committee, started releasing thousands and thousands of documents. And what happened when those documents came out? We found out that it was a bunch of Democrats sitting at the bottom of the barrel with their hands out, taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. As a matter of fact, some of them owe their entire political career to Jeffrey Epstein. Stacey Plaskett, as an example. I mean, hell, he was talking with her during congressional testimony where she was asking Michael Cohen questions and texting Jeffrey Epstein at the same time. Either Democrat surrogates or Democrat politicians themselves were found to have been in the back pockets of Jeffrey Epstein. We all knew it, and we've been telling people forever that when you get to the bottom of the Epstein files, you're going to find a bunch of Democrats there. So they had to figure out a way to change the conversation. Because if you notice, no one's talking about the Epstein files anymore. They'll do a couple little hits here and there once in a while just to keep the topic floating out there so that their propagandists can keep talking about it. But nobody's talking about the issue, because the issue now is about why are so many Democrats so far in bed and so indebted, and why do so many of them owe their entire political existence to Jeffrey Epstein? The second thing that happened is the Seditious Six came out with their video, and it backfired spectacularly. Because you see, the Seditious Six and the people surrounding them, I'm convinced, are at a place where they feel like they are entirely inoculated from any type of reprisal because of the seditious coup that's happening in the judiciary. Even though they may have known they were breaking federal law like 18 U.S.C. 2387 and 18 U.S.C. 372, they didn't care. But what they didn't count on is people like us who do care and doing the research necessary to hold them accountable to it. And then we're also finding out that the judicial seditious strategy that's been underway since Donald Trump took office again is being exposed. It is now being exposed to the point where we are watching district court judges having to write law from the bench to protect people like James Comey and Letitia James. All of these events have happened just in the last 6 weeks. All of them. So now you understand why they felt it was absolutely critical to move to the next step, to get you to stop paying attention to Jeffrey Epstein and to try to take out Pete Hegseth, because the color revolution is hanging by a thread. That's my perspective. I know SK probably has a different opinion because she thinks they're at the 2-yard line, first down, and ready to push it into the end zone. I'm kind of there with her, but I do think that they're nervous. I think that they're afraid that they're not going to be able to get the military, and they need Hegseth out of the way. Any thoughts?
Yeah, aren't they? Well, didn't you send an article about what they're trying to do?
Say that one more time. You buffered on me.
Oh, sorry. That article that you posted, that you sent in the group chat.
Yeah, we're gonna get to all that. We're
Yeah.
absolutely good. Yeah, we've got all that stuff lined up. We've got a ton of video for folks. We've got a ton of images. There might be some longer form videos on this that's going to explain all of this. There's no doubt about that. But one point that I think we need to make absolutely clear for people to understand, when they're talking about the illegality of these strikes, they're only doing it because they're trying to remove Pete Hegseth so that they can get someone in that position that will protect the people, the different parts of the apparatus of the color revolution, who are the enemy within, by the way. They are the enemy within. And President Trump knows it. And you're going to hear Alyssa Slotkin say it directly, the entire point of all of this, at a Brookings Institute conference. And we have all of it, which is going to blow your mind.
And wasn't there just an article released like an hour or two ago saying that the Democrats were introducing articles of impeachment for Hegseth?
Yeah, but that was that 70-year-old Indian dude who's still what's his? I can't remember his name. The guy who barely speaks any English.
Which one?
He's got a giant toupee of black hair. I can't remember his name. I had it. Yeah, it was that guy. I mean, between him and Al Green introducing articles of impeachment, they would impeach their mother if they thought they could get away with it.
That's right. Folks, I don't know if you caught what Nom just said, but I think we may have found the source of when this strategy of trying to frame Pete Hegseth as a war criminal was developed. We may have actually found where that plan hatched from. I think we should jump into that. I think we should play Vonda.
Let's play video 1.
Let's set this up real quick. So I think this conference, SK, keep me honest here. I'm pretty sure this conference took place in October, right?
Yeah, October 20-something, 26th, 29th, something like that. Yeah.
At the end of October, a bunch of people came together and they started having some very interesting conversations about their perspective on whether or not the military is being used legally. And you can see them starting to shape this narrative. But what's more important are the names of the people who were there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see some very interesting people who showed up at this conference right before they hatched this plan and the Seditious Six video rolled out.
Yeah. So just a little bit more context, right? So this is the Brookings Institute. And I want you, remember the names. You guys all know, if you were around back then, from episode 628 and beyond, the Brookings Institute is where almost all of the Russia collusion hoax was hatched. Almost all of it, right? These are not, these are players. And they sit around and they talk about national security strategy and national defense strategy. And to a person, every single person, I sat there and watched 75% of this like 3.5 hour thing today. And I was cutting videos. And there's so much in this thing. You guys have to go find it. We're going to give you the name of it before we're done. Go find it. Go watch it. Every single national security expert that was up there has nothing but contempt dripping off of their voice for President Trump and America first. Every single one of them. And this is the national security apparatus sitting around talking about what they need to do to essentially repel President Trump. Just so we're all clear. All right, let me play this. You guys ready? Here's Vonda. So Vonda, they'll set it up. Is this Vonda? Yeah, this is Vonda.
Can you define what you would see as our biggest national?
That's not Vonda.
What did we do with Vonda?
I think it is. I think she's at the tail end of it though. So I think you may have to.
That's not Vonda. Where's Vonda, PatriotDad?
I'm pretty sure that's Vonda. Go here. Let's go here. Oh no. No, we got it wrong.
Where is Vonda?
I have Vonda. I'll bring her up.
Oh, PatriotDad. See, listen, here's what happens, right? So I go in there and I name the sound in the videos based on like what it is. And he comes in later and says video 1, video 2, video 3, and then the outline doesn't line up. PatriotDad, you are no longer in charge of any of this.
Oh, I didn't even look at the outline.
Unprecedented.
Pull it up.
This is embarrassing, PatriotDad.
It's not. It's fine. This is how the sausage is made, people. We're going to find you Vonda because you need to hear Vonda. I get it. I'll pull it out of the text messages. SK, tell us a little bit about the Brookings Institute. Have you had a chance to
Yeah, I
watch
was getting
this
ready
video
to.
yet?
Yeah, well, I haven't watched the entire thing, but I did find the video and send it to you guys like yesterday or the day before. But the playbook, the Democracy Playbook 2025 that I reference all the time, that came out in like January of 2025, that was written by Norm Eisen and Jonathan Katz with the Brookings Institute. And there are a lot of people involved with the Brookings Institute, including Victoria Nuland's husband, Robert Kagan, and her entire family are involved in NGOs, including her sister-in-law, Kimberly Kagan, with the Institute of Study of War, I think it's called. And that's got Bill Kristol, Petraeus. It's got lots of people on it. They're all connected. Every single one of these people are connected. All of them. Brookings Institute's in the middle of a lot of the like planning stuff, the playbook stuff.
All right, I found Vonda. We've got Vonda.
You got Vonda? All right, let's play.
I've got Vonda. Crazy. All right, here comes Vonda.
Vonda, let me turn to you. Vonda, you're one of this country's leading experts on transnational threats, transnational criminal action, trafficking in persons, trafficking in protected wildlife. And you've advised successive U.S. governments on these transnational criminal issues, including narcotics, how to combat narcotics. And as Tom said, we anticipate that the national security strategy will have much more focus on Latin America. We've seen that the Trump administration is not using war on drugs rhetorically. It's not a metaphor. Where we've seen foreign terrorist organization designations against Mexican cartels. We see the repeated attacks on ships in the Caribbean and the Pacific, allegedly because of drug trafficking.
Again, how one goes about it is the important issue. So China was the country that on the first day, along with Mexico and Canada, very surprisingly, Canada were signaled out as places to have tariffs related to fentanyl and migration mixed together, imposed on them. We also had the designation of drug trafficking groups as foreign terrorist organizations. Those were radical shifts in US policy. And of course, the even more radical aspect is now lethal actions against drug trafficking, allegedly drug trafficking entities that are designated as foreign terrorist organizations, of which there are at least 13 or 14 at this state. So we heard Representative Smith talking about some of the implications and some of the questions. I think there is a massive questions about the efficacy of those attacks. Are they meant to deter criminal groups? I'm skeptical that they will work. Are they meant to stop the flow of drugs? We know for sure that's not going to work. Are they meant to intimidate the Venezuelan military to stop support for Maduro so that the regime breaks and Maduro and set of people around him leave? I'm skeptical that will work, but we can have that conversation perhaps in Q&A. But there are big implications we haven't talked about. So it is up to the executive branch to designate the group as a foreign terrorist organization. It appears now that in the scale of the 12, 13, 14 groups that have been designated, any criminal group that uses psychological intimidation or violence can be designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And the Trump administration is saying that they are now a valid target for lethal action.
But does FTO designation give them the authority for lethal action as opposed to financial restrictions and sanctions?
I would say it doesn't, but the Trump administration says it does. And it is also relying on Article 2, self-defense, and the ability to act without having congressional authorization. So they're specifically saying that because we are at war with the cartels, that gives them lethal ability without congressional declaration of war.
So real quick, before we move on, did you guys notice how many times she said allegedly when she was talking about the Venezuelan narco-terrorists and being the targets?
Yes, you guys. These people are just making money. They're not, they're just, this is what they do to make money. They're not criminals. They're just selling drugs and moving drugs because they're paid to do so.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly. And I think we actually have a sitting congressman saying exactly that these are people who are just out there making a living. That's it. I am absolutely astonished that someone who considers themselves a foreign policy expert sitting at the Brookings Institute is clearly defending narco-terrorists, clearly making an argument that, you're not going to be able to stop them. They're going to get away with whatever they want to get away with. We shouldn't even bother trying. It's almost like she's telling the Trump administration, they're going to do it whether you like it or not. This is stunning video that shows you how invested these people are in making sure that the drug traffic continues to flow. And wait a minute, did she also make the point that we shouldn't be waging war against drugs? I thought we were waging war against drugs and have been since the 1980s.
No, she did. So, well, she, to an extent. So that's those are clips mashed together of a much longer segment from her. So she actually started, and I had this all pulled together, and it was about 5 minutes. I'm like, we can't do a 5-minute thing. She started by actually admitting that, yeah, drugs are a huge problem in this country. They're killing over 100,000 people, a year. And she actually makes a comment, we have never seen the types of drugs that we're seeing in fentanyl and their lethality that we're now seeing. And she goes on to then say that, the bigger threat is how destabilized Mexico has become as a result of these drug cartels, and on and on and on. And then she basically pivots and said, yeah, you know what, but none of this is legal. It's not going to work. None of it's going to change anything. And by the way, the president is making this up as he goes, which is basically what she said there.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed that someone who considers themselves an expert in this space is arguing that we shouldn't even bother. We shouldn't bother, and went to the extent of saying, she said it twice, basically said that I don't think that what Trump is doing is legal. That is the key. That is the point. That was the takeaway from that entire conference, was now they have a legal or an expert in this space, someone who considers themselves to be an expert in foreign policy dealing with trafficking and drug flow, is saying that it is not legal for the president of the United States to use Article 2 self-defense as a justification for declaring narco-terrorists as terrorists and blowing them out of the water. That was the foundation, folks, for everything that you're getting ready to see.
Yeah.
That was
first she questions whether they can actually be labeled as a foreign terrorist organization. And the questioner, the guy that's running the panel or moderating the panel, he then goes on and says, yeah, but doesn't that mean we're only allowed to, to sanction them financially? What the hell did we do the last 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan? Were we sanctioning ISIS? Were we sanctioning Al-Qaeda? Were we sanctioning? No, we were blowing them the fuck up is what we were doing. A lot. With a lot of double, triple, and quadruple taps, by the way.
Yes. Tons. I think I even looked up how many.
Tons of them.
Yeah, well, Obama was doing the double taps, and he was waiting 5 to 30 minutes in between taps, and he was waiting for the first responders to get in there and killing innocent civilians. Nobody said a word about that.
No, and as a matter of fact, I have some video coming up for us here of Mark Kelly himself, who doesn't seem to be at all concerned about Biden drone strikes, just taking out a whole bunch of civilians. And yet he is very worried about Donald Trump blowing up a narco-terrorist boat full of drugs and terrorists.
I know we're going to get a little bit out of order here, but I mean, we've kind of segued into this nicely. Why don't we bring up that intel guy as he explains, for those of you that are clutching your fake pearls or pretending to clutch your pearls over these drug boat bombings, which, by the way, there's no such thing as a fishing boat with 5 300 horsepower Mercury motors on the back of them.
Stop.
And a whole bunch of narcotics.
Stop.
Right.
Everybody fishes in speedboats, and they all use Coke wrapped in plastic for bait. Come on, guys.
Right. So let's cue this up. It's a little out of order, but I think we segued into it nicely, because then after you see this, then we're gonna walk into all the others who didn't seem to give a damn when all of this was going on, but now suddenly have a very, very, very moral stance on the legality of double and triple tap. So
before you do that, we probably need to tee this up. So the guy that you're getting ready to see is not just some Yahoo on TikTok. This is a guy who is actually part, or at least was part, of the intel community. So he knows what he's talking about. He's deeply researched. He is an expert in this space, somebody that we turn to quite regularly when we have questions about this stuff. He doesn't make a ton of content, but when he does, it is valuable, and you should listen to him because he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. Go. So this is that intel guy. We were trying to get him on the show tonight. We weren't able for 5 or 10 minutes. We weren't able to make it work out, but he did give me permission to use this video. So I took a small segment of a video he cut yesterday about this. Here we go.
Investigation goes forward, they will have to pull out very detailed information that likely won't be released to the public, like the imagery, the video footage, the intelligence that was collected prior to the strike to determine who was a drug trafficker, a combatant, if you will. Were these people considered operational? Did they have profiles already developed on them so they knew exactly who they were striking? All this will be important for the investigation, but I also bring it up because it's the exact same information and material that we would gather prior to conducting all of our drone strikes in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the reason why I bring those up is because if you have a problem with this boat strike, then you better have a problem with the last 15 to 20 years of strikes that we've been conducting against terrorists. Because that term double tap is a very common term. Why? Because we did it all the time against strikes that we conducted against terrorists. Because all those strikes would be considered through this lens as war crimes, especially this one. This was an American citizen that actually did not commit any actual crimes. He was simply designated as an operational commander, making actual operational decisions in an attempt to attack America or American citizens. And so that alone got him a strike designation and prosecution by the Obama administration. And that didn't come from the Secretary of Defense. That came from President Obama himself. So did President Obama also then commit a war crime? And if your answer is yes, then again, all of these for 15, 20 years are war crimes, especially the ones that have double taps. So you should probably keep that into perspective when you're talking about this topic. And there are already people on this app and across social media that are trying to equate this, again, to something the Yahtzees had done to maritime shipping vessels during World War II, and they were considered war crimes. Those were merchant vessels. Those were civilians. And so these people are not classified as merchant vessels or civilians. They're classified as drug runner narco terrorists under our current law structure. So this is still a legal strike, whether you like it or not. Now,
whether you like it or not, and we got a lot more on this topic of whether or not this is legal, because there's been some really interesting information coming out. But before we get to that, I think we need to kind of frame what he was talking about specifically for those of you guys who don't know the details of the Washington Post story. So the Washington Post wrote a story back on Friday of last week. And in the story, they alleged that two anonymous sources, and what do we always tell you about anonymous sources? Don't listen to them, because anonymous sources are the way that the media launders information into the American public so that then it can be used to open investigations against their political targets. The problem that they have is, like Nom said earlier today in a video, they got out over their skis. They tried to open the investigations before they laundered the information. And now they have to basically make this up whole cloth. So the Washington Post came in after the fact, after the Seditious Six created their videos, after they violated 18 USC 2387 or 20, whatever it is, 2387, after they violated 18 USC 372, after Mark Kelly very well may be standing court-martial for Article 94 violations, put themselves in a lot of legal hot water, the Washington Post then has to come out and cover their asses by providing them legal cover. That's what the Washington Post did on Friday when they wrote that article saying they had two anonymous sources that allege that Pete Hegseth gave a direct order for a follow-up, quote, double tap strike against civilians in the water that had been blown out of the boat that was not yet destroyed from the first strike. That whole story fell apart.
It did. I want to make a comment real quick for GP WaPo in the comment. A form of the wrap-up smear is right, except the wrap-up smear requires coordination from the Democrats and the media, and the media leads. They lead with the article. This one, there was no coordination. There was no choreography that happened here. In fact, the media was just a surprise. So what you saw the Washington Post do is very dutifully, whether they were told to or they already know what their role is, and we know they all know what their roles are, right, SK? They all know their jobs. It's like the immune response. Oh, crap, they're in trouble. We have to provide cover, not just legal cover, but political cover. And that's all this was. That's all that Washington Post article was. It was legal cover, and it took less than 36 hours a weekend for the New York Times, in a random act of journalism, which rarely happens, completely debunked it, destroyed it. which is shocking. I can't believe I just had to admit that, but I did.
SK, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, we're talking about the civilian fisherman that they're saying was killed, that the wife has now filed something about his death. The same guy that was arrested for stealing like almost 300 weapons from like a police station or something, right?
Yeah,
Sounds
right.
Sounds legit.
Yeah.
well, it's
Another
been-
way that you can tell that the Washington Post is lying to you is who they use to lie to you with. Remember how Nam earlier said this is going to be a remember the names episode? You guys remember the name Ellen Nakashima? Who remembers Ellen Nakashima?
I do.
Well, let me remind you, Ellen Nakashima was one of the people that James Comey used to launder information into the media about Russian collusion and about the Steel Dossier. She is a well-known Russian collusion hoaxer, a PP hoaxer, actually. I think she was involved in the Steel Dossier hoax too, if I remember correctly.
And she won a Pulitzer for her reporting too.
And she won a Pulitzer for it.
And keep in mind, again, all connected, all the same people, the same names we mention all the time. Nina Jankowicz was laundering the information, and then she was put in charge of the Disinformation Governance Board. She was laundering the information about Alpha Bank, which was put out there by who? Jake Sullivan, who's married to who? One of the seditious six.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
We have
Yeah,
a
we're
lot
gonna-
on
we're
Jake
gonna-
Sullivan.
we're
We
gonna
haven't
tie
even
that
started on
together.
Jake Sullivan yet.
And then there was Natasha Bertrand, who had her hands all over that Washington Post article also. So do you see how this works? It's really not that big of a network of seditious conspirators. It's actually a pretty small, yet very, 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 I don't know the word I'm looking for, diabolical and evil group of people who are willing to break every single law that they can possibly think of, as long as they think they can be successful. So that was the Washington Post article. It fell in its face because the New York Times utterly debunked them. But then they had to go with the gaslighting. Suddenly, it is now a crime to take out terrorists. But apparently, it was not a crime back when it happened in 2021 under the Biden administration, when General McKenzie ordered a drone strike that killed a whole bunch of civilians. Now, you want to pull up that video 3, where we have Mark Kelly, who, by the way, should probably be standing trial for a violation of Article 94 against the Uniform Code of Military Justice for his behavior, who was questioning a general. And I just want you to see his demeanor when he talks about how concerned he is.
And I know you can't go into much detail about the analysis that led to the August 28th drone strike in Kabul in this open setting, but I would like to note my serious concerns and give you the opportunity to make any comment on how the American people can know that the military will be able to adequately assess targets before conducting future strikes and operations, even as we have even fewer local intelligence and surveillance resources to leverage.
Senator, again, the matter's under investigation, but what I can tell you broadly, and to restate some things I've said earlier, I am responsible for that. It happened in my area of responsibility, so I'm the responsible officer for that strike. Moreover, I was under no pressure, and no one in my chain of command below me was under any pressure to take that strike. We acted based on the intelligence read that we saw on the ground. We acted several times on intelligence that we saw, and we were successful in other occasions in preventing attacks. This time, tragically, we were wrong. And you're right to note that as we go forward and our ability to create what we call the ecosystem that allows you to see what's going on the ground and put all that together, it's going to get a lot harder to do that, particularly in places like Afghanistan. But I can share a little more with you later.
Well, thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Kelly.
Tell me how great you are, General. Tell me how great what you did. How great it was what you did, General. Even though they wiped out an entire house of 7 people in that house were killed.
10.
And they were
I think there was 10.
Innocent. 10. They had not completely innocent. They had literally nothing to do with it. And the general's like, no, I made the decision all on my own. Yeah. And we issued an illegal order. He didn't care. He didn't care.
Well, more important, I just want you to think about the juxtaposition. I use that word all the time. I don't know if you guys like it. I think it's appropriate. The juxtaposition of Mark Kelly questioning a Biden general who just assassinated a household full of 10 people who were totally innocent, not terrorists, compared to how he behaves under actual legal orders to take out narco terrorists. Just think about that. Hey, Nom, have you ever heard of or read the law of armed conflict?
I mean, I haven't read the entire thing, but I know what it is. I understand the tenets of it, but no, I haven't sat down and read the entire law of armed conflict.
Well,
no.
I asked that question because that general laid out a couple of really important pieces of information about what actually would have made that strike, that drone strike, legal. And it has to do with the intelligence that they had at the time and what they deemed was an actual military target. Would you be surprised to know that the fact pattern that we see coming out of the first strike on that Venezuelan narco-terrorist boat is very similar in terms of using intelligence to make a decision on the ground? So I want to introduce you guys, if you have not yet been made aware of something called the law of armed conflict, because we're hearing everybody on the left talk about how it's an illegal order, how Pete Hegseth should be arrested, he should be tried for murder, he should be executed because they believe that he issued an illegal order. And I have heard probably 150,000 of these people tell us that he violated international law. The problem is they've probably never read the law of armed conflict. So the law of armed conflict is effectively a body of humanitarian laws that focus on protecting civilians during armed conflict. So it pulls together a bunch of different treaties like the Geneva Convention, the Hague Conventions, and it sets out standards for how armed conflict should be deployed. There's fundamental principles that have to be considered during an armed conflict when making a decision on something to strike. The first one is on what's called distinction. Combatants must distinguish between combatants and civilians and between military objectives and civilian objectives. Attacks may only be directed at military objectives. All right, so if you compare what the general admitted to doing, attacking a civilian household that had zero military objectives in it, that 2021 drone strike already violates the core principles of the law of armed conflict. Military necessity. Force may only be used to achieve a legitimate military purpose. Unnecessary suffering or destruction is prohibited. Proportionality. The anticipated loss of civilian life, injury to civilians, or damage to civilian objects must not be excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. And number 4, unnecessary suffering. Weapons and methods that cause cause extra injury or unnecessary suffering are forbidden. Why do I bring this up? Because now that we understand the full fact pattern of the Venezuelan narco-terrorist boat, it is impossible to make an argument that what was ordered in terms of an initial strike and a second strike violates any international law. Pete Hegseth, now we know, Pete Hegseth gave an order to, quote, destroy the vessel. Destroy the vessel. That is a really important component of an order. Destroy the vessel. So in that first strike that was ordered from Admiral Bradley, the vessel was not destroyed. Therefore, the military mission was not complete. The vessel was not destroyed. And how do we know that? Well, now that we have intelligence that's telling us that the narco-terrorists who were hanging off the side of the boat were able to get inside the boat again. And more importantly, they have actual radio conversations of those terrorists calling for help, meaning they had put themselves back in the fight again, and the contents of the boat had not yet been destroyed. The military mission was not over, which according to the law of armed conflict still makes that a viable target for a second strike.
I have a question.
Answer.
And this is a question I've been asking all day, and I'm gonna need one of these brain dead, smooth brain lips to answer this question for me. Do you imagine that the military only gets one try at taking out an objective? They only get one try, and if they're not successful, they're done. You don't get any other option. You don't have any other shots. You can't come back again. You tried one time. Oops, so bad you missed. Do you really think that's the case? Because if you do, I've got a high-speed railroad in California to sell you for about $150 billion, please.
Only in a world where we are supposed to abide by some rules of self-defense that say you have to shoot somebody in the kneecap. Like that's the standard of armed conflict.
Yeah. They're insane. There's no logic here. And the people that believe this stuff is it's crazy. I saw comments on a story about this fisherman that was killed, and there were Democrats in the comments talking about how terrible this was and how terrible the Trump administration was, and they wish they could start a GoFundMe for this family. And I'm like, what are you talking about? These people are moving cocaine into the United States. Are you okay?
And fentanyl.
And they're cutting the cocaine with fentanyl once it gets here. That's another way they're killing people, which, by the way, in 1 year, last year, killed more people than the Vietnam War. And these people want to start a GoFundMe for the drug smuggler's family. What is wrong with these people?
Let's be clear about what's happening, right? Let's be very clear. These are terrorists delivering weapons of mass destruction into this country that are killing 100,000 Americans a year. These are weapons of mass destruction being delivered into our country and distributed basically indiscriminately across this country. There are endless stories of high school kids and dumb college kids who are out for a night and they're like, oh yeah, I'll take a pill, and boom, they're dead because of fentanyl, because of the shit that these people are bringing across.
And
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. Don't forget about the cheerleader that never did anything wrong in her entire life, and her back is hurting from cheer practice and working out constantly and having 4-hour practices. And her friend says, I have this pain pill, and it's something she's taken before for an injury previously. She breaks it in half, takes it, lays down in bed, and goes to sleep and doesn't wake up because it's fentanyl.
There are hundreds of thousands of stories like that. So here's the deal, Democrats. I don't give a fuck. Blow them up. Yeah. If it takes 3 tries, 4 tries, 5 tries, I don't care.
I actually applaud the Trump administration and Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley for following the law of armed conflict to the letter. When you are given an order to destroy something and that thing is not destroyed, and those people who are terrorists inside are not destroyed, and the contents of that vessel are not destroyed, they are obligated in order to finish the mission to hit it again. Now, while most people, until it's done. Now, while most people out there may not have actually read the law of armed conflict before, they may not know this stuff inside and out. I guarantee you the hairy loser citizens of the world have not read the law of armed conflict. Do you know who has read that? Anybody?
Probably Pete Hegseth, I imagine.
Well, he probably has. Yeah.
I guarantee you Pete Hegseth has read it, but you know who else
Bradley has? Yeah. All the bad guys have too.
Well, I think we actually have a few of them. Do you want to pull up the one guy who, by the way, used to be a former secretary or Department of Defense?
Well, he was also, so before that, he was the head of the CIA.
That's right.
Leon Panetta. And
do you think Leon Panetta is aware of the law of armed conflict when he makes this statement right here?
Well, okay, we'll get to it. Yeah, here we go.
No, you got to pull it up.
Lawyer
there you go.
That I'm aware of who indicates that second strike is not a war crime. These are individuals in the water who were wounded. It is against the law to strike and kill those individuals. They did that. As far as I'm concerned, there is a war crime involved here, and it's for that reason that I think we need to hold people accountable.
We can start with you.
So, listen, it is not an accident, and you will see why here very shortly. It is not an accident that Leon Panetta, who was the director of the CIA under Barack Obama from 2009 until I think 2011. And then he was the Secretary of Defense under Barack Obama from 2011 to 2013. It is not an accident that they pulled that old crippled guy out from underneath the rock that he's been under for however many years and brought him out to try to make this case. And you're going to see why it wasn't an accident.
But can we agree that he's probably read the law of armed conflict and knows that those terrorists in the water getting back into the boat, calling their comrades on shore somewhere, put them back into the fight? He knows that. He knows that.
But hold on. He lied. He said they're hanging onto the boat when in fact they weren't hanging onto the side of the boat.
No,
that's a lie.
They weren't.
They weren't hanging onto the side of the boat, number one. And number two, that's on MSNBC, whatever the hell they're calling themselves now. And they know for a fact that every skull full of mush, smooth brain retard that's watching that show is going to believe every word that the crippled old Leon Panetta has to say. They just know it. So they don't care if it's true or not.
Just like they believed that letter that he signed by the 51 intelligence agents saying
that guy,
that the Hunter Biden laptop was in fact, well, it had all the classic hallmarks of Russian disinformation. And then they go on for multiple pages to tell you all the experience they have and how they can detect Russian disinformation. And they all had a discussion about if they were going to add their credentials and all of their experience, which of course they decided they would, because that makes it more credible to the American people. They already had the laptop in their possession. And this dude that's talking about this signed that letter telling the American people that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. And then they turned around and used it to convict him of a crime in Delaware.
So Leon Panetta's a liar. What about this guy? Do you think this guy?
Respect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mm-hmm. And I think in many ways, the uniform military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump. And I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
That sounds
so,
like
Senator, let's go a little further on this. What are concerns?
No, let's not. Do you think that Senator Mark Warner probably knows about the law of armed conflict? Do you think he's aware of that?
Sounds to me like he's telling people that he's counting on the military and people that they have in place to be able to overthrow this government. They've already got him.
What about
no,
Senator?
Don't move on from Warner yet. Okay. Come on. Warner needs a couple more minutes, because everybody knows that when Mark Warner speaks, the deep state is speaking. He is a mouthpiece. It's like everybody in the CIA that's been operating and orchestrating color revolution since, I don't know, back 2002. Every single one of them, when what they did is they took their hand and they shoved it up Mark Warner's rear end and they started going like this on that. Like this. That's who Mark Warner is, number one. Number two, we just talked about Mark Warner 2 episodes ago, didn't we? Because Mark Warner is a senator from the state of what? Virginia. And Mark Warner is one of the two senators in the state of Virginia with the blue slip that is preventing the U.S. attorney that President Trump wants to put into office and the Eastern District of Virginia to prosecute the deep state who has their hand up Mark Warner's ass.
So now Mark Warner, the Virginia senator, is now also demanding accountability from Admiral Bradley, the same Mark Warner who's engaged in a seditious conspiracy against the president of the United States. All right.
Are we starting to see a pattern with the Democrats in the blue states and the fact that this guy's from Virginia, and also you have Spamberger and CIA? Why are all of these intelligence people and CIA people in all of these blue states? It's weird.
I know it's weird. It's almost like there's an organization out there who's recruiting them and putting them in positions like, what's that organization called? New Politics?
Yeah, New Politics is a good one. There's a whole list. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them.
Hey, by the way, folks, we're not going to be able to get to this tonight, but I promise you we will. Did you guys know that this organization, New Politics, who's recruiting people for the Democrat Party ticket, touched every single one of the Seditious Six? And they are in office because of the same organization. Weird. I don't know. It's almost like there's a conspiracy there to put people like Alyssa Slatkin, who, by the way, would know about the law of armed conflict because she's a former CIA analyst, and, you know, Mark Kelly, who, by the way, is a senior officer in the Navy, would also know about the law of armed conflict because that's what he does. Who knows that when they're going out in front of cameras alleging that the Trump administration and Pete Hegseth are violating international law and should be executed for murder, they're lying to you, and they freaking know they're lying to you. They know it.
Well,
every
they are
single one of
career
those
liars.
seditious six. Every single one of the seditious six are lying to you, and they know it because they know that that strike was legal and it was necessary to protect and defend the United States. Every one of them. They're lying to
Listen,
you.
I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. It's written in their playbook. They tell you what they're going to do before they do it. And people are still like, and don't understand what's going on.
But because that didn't work, they've moved on. Did you guys see this? CBS News, Pentagon watchdog finds Hegseth signal chat violated regulations, could have endangered troops, sources say, which is really weird because how would CBS know that, considering the report that the Inspector General released is classified and has not been seen by anybody except for members up on Capitol Hill? Do you want to know how CBS found out, allegedly, that the watchdog says that Pete Hegseth violated regulations? Anonymous sources. Two,
Anonymous sources
Two.
like Eugene Vendeman and possibly Mark Kelly and all the other people that were involved in asking for this investigation. People like that.
Yeah. Two anonymous sources told CBS News that the investigation into the signal chat scandal violated regulations, which is really weird considering that's not at all what officials are saying. As a matter of fact, officials from the Department of War are saying that the investigation from the Inspector General's office entirely exonerates Pete Hegseth. Entirely. As a matter of fact, Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesman, who's willing to go on record, not an anonymous source, says the Inspector General reviews a total exoneration of Secretary Hegseth and proves what we knew all along. No classified information was shared. This matter is resolved and the case is closed. Do you see how it works, folks?
And can we just add to this, very importantly, that the information in the report that was given to Congress that was then leaked to the press was classified information, and they all came out talking about it after the anonymous sources leaked it, and they all decided to give their names while they're commenting on it. Like, we don't know where this information came from because there's only one committee that had it, and all of these people are in this committee. And this is what they do. And then they don't realize that you have news outlets, including PBS, who, by the way, Signal, Catherine Mayer, PBS, also Catherine Mayer, also CIA. They got a summary of the report from the anonymous sources. And then what's going to be released to the public tomorrow is also a summary of the report. Weird.
Well, it's all gamesmanship. If you bring both of those back up, right? So the first one you showed said it violated department policy, right? Could have violated regulations. What regulations? Because if you remember early on, what they were talking about was they were saying that it's illegal to use Signal. Well, no, it wasn't, because the Biden administration is the one in the Department of Defense that made it part of policy that you could use Signal to communicate because it's an end-to-end encrypted application. Fine, whatever. So that was actually Biden era policy. That wasn't, Hegseth and them coming in and creating policy. That was Biden era policy that put that in place. Number one. So, okay, it violated regulations. Well, what regulations? What are the regulations? Because they don't tell you that. It's just the headline. That's it. You're supposed to read the headline and think, Hegseth's head's going to roll now because of that. It doesn't say anything in there about that they were sharing classified information. That's what they want you to assume happens. And then you have to go to the people who are actually telling you the truth. Yeah, there was no classified information that was shared in there. And by the way, it didn't violate regulations because it was a regulation of policy that the Biden administration had implemented during the Otto Pence administration. What in the actual hell are these people talking about?
It's called gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just lying. They're just lying liars. Every single one of them are lying liars.
Lying liars. Well, I mean, they are CIA. I mean, this is what they got paid to do.
They can literally be hooked up to a lie detector test and probably pass it.
Yeah, most of them.
All right, we got to get to the coup de grace. The coup de grace, whatever, however you say that. Because the whole purpose of this show, if you guys remember how we started this is organized very intentionally, folks. We created this outline specifically so that you understand that everything that you're seeing play out all originates from the same place with the same people, the same organization, the same grand conspirators, the same seditious six. They're all the same people. I think it's time to show the Robert Kagan video.
I think it is too. So let's set this up a little bit. So we already got a glimpse of Vonda, I believe was her name, who was the national expert on narco trafficking and all the lady who essentially twisted herself in a pretzel to tell you that these strikes were illegal. This occurred at a Brookings Institute event. It was called the 2025 Night Forum on Geopolitics. This event was held October 29th of 2025. So a little bit more than a month ago. And there were some very interesting characters. And we're going to introduce you into a character that many of you don't know, but we're going to tie a nice, tidy bow around all of this. So here we go. This is Robert Kagan. Okay? Robert Kagan.
Did you say that he's married to Victoria Nuland?
No, you would see as our biggest national security threats today, given those domestic issues that you've so eloquently identified, and what would you do about them?
Well, thank you, Jeff. The biggest threat to our national security right now is our domestic problem. I mean, my national security strategy is we have to elect a different government, but I'm not sure we're going to have elections, so I don't know whether I have a good strategy for that. I think if you had asked Americans in the World War II and afterward period what the grand strategy was, if you read the works of a historian like Mel Leffler, it would be to preserve a liberal democratic capitalist system, not necessarily to preserve any particular person's rule. But what we're dealing with now is one-man rule in this country. We're not dealing with the normal democratic processes that produce whatever that kind of national security strategy is. So take this question of Venezuela and the bombing of the boats. Personally, I don't think this is primarily about foreign policy. Right. I think it's primarily about domestic policy. I believe that the administration wants to be able to go to the Supreme Court and say, we are at war, and therefore we can do whatever we want on a whole host of domestic issues, including deportations and arrests, and even pursuing the wrong kind of people here in the United States under the overall blanket of a national security waiver because we are at war.
Victoria Nuland's husband.
Hold on. I can't be the only one that was completely distracted that entire time that Victoria Nuland's husband was spewing whatever word vomit that was by the bags under that lady's eyes. What is she smuggling in there? Is she smuggling cocaine?
Yeah. So,
listen, she is an expert on trafficking and movement of narcotics. She's an expert on it, and you can tell by her face.
All jokes aside, that is Robert Kagan, and Robert Kagan is married to Victoria Nuland. SK, who is Victoria Nuland?
Victoria Nuland is the one that was responsible for the Orange Revolution, also called the Revolution of Dignity, the Dignity Revolution. I'm not sure which order it goes in because it's all mixed up in my head because of all the same words that they're using here, doing the same thing that they did in Ukraine in the United States, which is great.
You mean somebody who spearheaded on behalf of Barack Obama through the State Department, led a color revolution in Ukraine, which put Ukraine in a position that ultimately Hunter Biden was sitting on the board of Burisma and get all that stuff. Yeah, all that stuff happened under Victoria Nuland, whose husband is now sitting at the Brookings Institute engaging in another color revolution. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. And after she got out of the administration, she went to work at Covington Burling, which is where a lot of other really bad people come from or go to when they're done. I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same swampy swamp.
Hey, Nom, who else was at that Brookings Institute?
Well, hold on.
event?
Yeah, that's right. So who else was at the Brookings Institute in that conference? So we've had Vonda, who's twisted herself in pretzels to call these strikes illegal, and then we've got whatever the
Victoria
hell Robert
Nuland's
Kagan
husband.
was talking about. Yeah,
I think
Victoria
we need
Nuland's
to.
husband.
He needs to be known forever as Victoria Nuland's husband.
I have a question. Why do these people always keep their maiden names and never change their names? Is it so that we don't know that it's one big, giant, nasty, incestuous ball of disgustingness?
Yes.
And more
and
importantly, how did they end up married to each other? It's this
it has
weird,
to
like,
be
it has to be arranged. And I have a belief that this all has to do with the fact that you can't make spouses testify against one another. That's why they marry each other inside this incestuous circle of just evil, demonic color revolutionists. That's why they do it. That's why Victoria Nuland is not Victoria Kagan.
I think it has a lot to do with like Mr. and Mrs. Smith type shit. Like this is just their assignment and this is what they're doing. So that's what
right.
I think, because these people are all CIA. Also, don't forget Victoria Nuland's sister-in-law is the one that's at the founded with Bill Kristol and Petraeus and all of those people, the Institute for the Study of War. Weird.
And while we're bringing in family members, we haven't talked about this yet. Did you guys know that Mark Kelly's brother, his twin brother, actually works for Ukraine?
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Did you know that, audience? Did you guys know that Mark Kelly, the color revolutionist who's probably going to be court-martialed, his brother is working for Zelensky in Ukraine? Did you know that?
Yes, raising money.
Raising money, like over $2 billion.
Yeah, but also let's not forget the role Ukraine plays in trying to have Trump killed. Because remember, one of those guys that tried to kill Trump was also recruiting people to go to Ukraine and fight, asking for their visas. Like the U.S. government didn't know this guy was recruiting fighters for Ukraine, who, by the way, he also recruited fighters for like Afghanistan, some other place. This guy was known by the U.S. government. He was collecting passports and taking them to someone, and they were sending people to fight for Ukraine. The same guy that tried to kill Trump.
Can I put a tiny little bow on this for us? So Victoria Nuland, under the direction of Barack Obama, goes to Ukraine, initiates a color revolution that ultimately installs the government that we see now, who employs the brother of Mark Kelly, Hunter Biden, employed Hunter Biden, attempted to assassinate the future president of the United States. After they impeached him over a phone call, using a whistleblower who accompanied Joe Biden on a trip to actually engage in a quid pro quo. Now her husband is sitting at the Brookings Institute organizing another color revolution.
Oh, he's been there for a long time, but you're leaving out an important detail here. Remember, Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. Burisma is a natural gas company, and you have to remember that Biden came into office and lifted the sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and then it blew up.
Oh no. So, who else was at the Brookings Institute?
Well, we're gonna move the ball down the field a little bit. So why are we showing you Robert Kagan, right? I mean, Victoria Nuland's long gone from government, right? I mean, very far long gone from government. She's over in Covington, Burlington. Is she? Well, the reason we showed you Robert Kagan is because immediately after that panel on October 29th, 2025, who do you imagine, PatriotDad, who do you think the most coincidental speaker would be on that at that conference?
Given the
take a wild
fact
guess.
pattern, it probably has to be one of the seditious six. It
It has to be somebody
okay?
from the CIA, maybe a chick.
It has to be.
I know a lot of you are here to talk about the forthcoming national
of a gun
security
and a kiss
strategy,
my butt.
national defense strategy, America's role in the world. Very timely discussion, since the word on the street is those strategies are being rewritten and reoriented to focus on homeland defense rather than competition with China and those kinds of things. Sounds reasonable enough. But here's the thing. In 2025, homeland threats aren't being defined by the Pentagon or based on what the intelligence community deems our greatest threats. They are being determined by one man, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump alone. And he is showing the world just how willing he is to use force against his enemies. Now, our system is set up to give the president, any president, real power to make decisions on national security and foreign policy. And that's because when it comes to keeping us safe from attack, a commander-in-chief needs the power to make quick decisions. As someone who worked in both a Republican White House and a Democratic White House, I saw these critical decisions made up close. You need the power to act when it's about life and death. But Trump has laid out a whole lot of enemies that are American citizens. And if he's willing to use lethal force against enemies abroad, as we've been seeing, what's stopping him from using lethal force against enemies here at home? That question should chill every American to the bone. And I'm giving this speech today because I believe that's exactly the plan. I believe that Trump is ready to bring the full weight of the federal government against Americans he perceives as enemies. Why? Because he has one goal: making sure that he and his ilk never have to give up power.
And that's it right
Oh
there.
my God.
The entire point of this entire exercise is they know that they are the enemy within that President Trump is talking about. It's
right.
her. It's Robert Kagan. It's Leon Panetta. It's Eugene Vonda. It's all of them that are operating and orchestrating a color revolution against the sitting president, against the Constitution, against the United States of America. They're doing it. And all of this exists so that they can eliminate and take off the board Pete Hegseth and the military, which frankly may be the only recourse we have to get these people out of the picture. They know exactly what's going on.
Did you catch
that's why they're doing this.
Did you catch what she said? She
Oh,
said
yeah.
she seems a little salty about the fact that the intel community isn't the one that's able to make these decisions, and they've lost their power is kind of what it sounds
She
like to me.
seems
But also,
very
she's
salty.
CIA, and the CIA isn't supposed to operate on U.S. soil. So, ma'am, what are you doing?
Well, she's
Why are
breaking
you
the
here?
law. We know why she's here, and we know why she's at the Brookings Institute right before the Seditious Six put their video out. But what else was happening right about the same time? So, folks, we're going to go a little bit long tonight. I hope you don't mind, because we have two more segments that we absolutely have to nail to the wall so you understand what's going on. One of Nom's favorite X accounts broke something for us the other day, and I'm going to let him set this up.
Yeah, so this wasn't happening at the same time. Do you remember?
Well, it's happened
last
over
week?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, do you remember last week? I think it was probably the Monday show before Thanksgiving where we said when we are all going to be, deep frying our turkeys and all that stuff, the color revolutionists are going to be at work. They're going to be working because we're not going to be paying attention. And wouldn't you know, one of my favorite accounts on X, Tony Seruga. If any of you follow me on TikTok, you will know that my first 3 videos ever on that platform were based on Tony Seruga and his GPS data. So Tony Seruga, basically him and his partners in a company that he owns, they own the rights to every digital ID, every GPS digital ID on the planet. And he has built a massive AI powered database where he can go in and he can tell us exactly the devices, the phone numbers, and the people and where they are, and he can geolocate them. The very first video that I ever did, let me bring this back real quick. The very first video I ever did was during the campaign. It seemed like there were always people in the crowd who knew what Kamala Harris was going to say, and the reason why is because Tony Seruga actually was tracking the GPS, and nearly 90% of the attendees of her rallies were bussed from rally to rally to rally, and he confirmed it with GPS data. So Tony Seruga is a great follow. I've been following him for more than a year now. Fantastic. And wouldn't you know, look at what Tony Seruga identified. Barack Obama's war room, by the way, is still in Washington, D.C. It's just a 4-minute stroll from the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C., by the way. And what do you think they were doing the week of Thanksgiving? They had some visitors, Jake Sullivan, Victoria Nuland, Samantha Power, Lisa Monaco, and Susan Rice were some of the visitors that were seen at Barack Obama's war room, just 4-minute stroll from the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C. Did you catch some of those names?
That's like a whole list of people that I've had on a list of people that need to be investigated and prosecuted. Samantha Power, head of USAID. Susan Rice, head of domestic policy under Biden, who was the one taking all of the information, doing the policy for Biden's administration from the United We Stand Summit, all of the ADL, SPLC, all of that, all of the censorship that happened. Yeah. Victoria Nuland, color revolutions all over the world. Jake Sullivan, Russia collusion hoax. Like what?
Jake Sullivan is also married to a seditious sixer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
What's her name? Maggie Goodlander. And what else did Maggie Goodlander? What else did Maggie Good? What else did Maggie?
Remember
Goodlander
the names.
do?
Remember the names.
Remember the names.
Didn't Maggie also work for Lisa Monaco at the DOJ?
Yes.
She did.
Weird.
She did. She was like special counsel, or she was a special advisor to Merrick Garland, and she was the one that was providing the legal cover for the Mar-a-Lago raid. Wait, hold on. We actually have a video for this. This is actually a really good one. Hold on. Everybody stand by. Maggie Goodlander, married to Jake Sullivan. Here we go.
Do you know who is the national security and senior advisor to Merrick Garland, the #1 government gangster? The wife of Jake Sullivan, the current national security advisor to the United States of America, is advising Merrick Garland on the legality and national security implications of both of these investigations. Not a coincidence that this lady is out there manhunting documents for Joe Biden. She's running the investigation, she being the wife of Jake Sullivan. And of course, Jake Sullivan, who's the biggest Hillary Clintonite in the world, is in the White House with Susan Rice running this operation.
Guys, you literally could not write this spy novel.
She helped.
Couldn't do it.
You guys, she helped authorize the raid on Mar-a-Lago over Operation Crossfire Hurricane and the reasons that they went to Mar-a-Lago to begin with. Because remember, there's a linked interview with Kash Patel and Breitbart in the search warrant where he's talking about Crossfire Hurricane.
Do you guys think that Maggie Goodlander has read about the law of armed conflict before?
I'm sure she has.
What do you think in the comments? You think Maggie Goodlander, the wife of Jake Sullivan, has read about the law of armed conflict and would know that everything that they were saying in that video was complete and total bullshit? Do you think she would know that? I think she knows that. I'm pretty sure she knows that.
So we've got two people. We've got Victoria Nuland, and we've got Jake Sullivan, and we've got Lisa Monaco, by the way. Lisa Monaco, I believe, was the Deputy Attorney General under Merrick Garland. All of them had some role in the lawfare against President Trump, against Mar-a-Lago raid, all of the classified documents case, everything. But they all also go back very, very far back. I believe a number of these people were actually in the room when Barack Obama and Joe Biden actually okayed the Russia collusion hoax. They were in the room. I think
Lisa Monaco was, for sure.
I think
Lisa
Susan
Monaco
Rice was.
Susan Rice definitely was.
And maybe even Victoria Nuland.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what we're watching play out, guys, this is so crazy. What we're watching play out is literally all of this circles all the way back to the very beginning of the years-long seditious conspiracy. They are trying to remove President Trump as a viable commander-in-chief and the one person in the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who will actually do what needs to be done. Not one of these soft, squishy guys who are going to be like, hey, we're not allowed to do it. No, even though they're not breaking the law, trying to remove them from the chessboard so that they can go back and protect literally the initial sin, the original sin of the Russia collusion hoax. All of these people have played an entire role from the beginning of this. And now they're using their spouses to continue the color revolution. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Real quick over on Rumble. So Whitmer's got to go, asking a fantastic question. Why doesn't Trump's people use people like you, Data Republican, and the GPS guy? Are they aware of the information independent civilians have found? Yes, they are.
Yes.
Folks, they're watching.
Yes, they are.
They are watching. They know. Question is, when is the right time for them to move?
Do you know how I know they're watching? Because do you know how I know they're watching? Because Nom brought the word retard back into the lexicon, and President Trump 2 weeks later put it into a truth social post.
There's your evidence right there. Nom
I'm
started
taking
saying
credit for
retard,
that.
and now President Trump is saying retard. It's
But
a big
also,
deal. They're
to
watching.
the person that was asking that question, you also have to remember that our judiciary is captured as well. So they have to be extremely careful when they are doing investigations and pressing charges against people for things, because if they, even if they do everything right, chances of being able to get a judge that's going to do anything is very slim.
Look, here's the bottom line. Because the district courts have been totally captured, and it is very unlikely, except for maybe a few districts here and there, they're going to be able to actually prosecute these people. I think the Trump administration and the seditious Sixers and the grand collusion hoaxers know that the military is going to have to get involved. And that is the reason why they're so fixated on removing Pete Hegseth. Nom, can you pull up the X post from Laura Loomer? So I want to close out the show. I want to close out the show with a post that Laura Loomer, whether you love her or hate her, you cannot deny the fact that this woman is wrecking people in the deep state and exposed, I think, what is probably the biggest piece of this entire puzzle just the other day. So now I'm going to pull this up, and I want to read this post to you. Exclusive. Secretary of the Army's office plotting coup at the Pentagon to remove Pete Hegseth and replace him with Dan Driscoll, who is the Secretary of the Army. Individuals in the office of the U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll have been orchestrating a coup against Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in an effort to have him removed by President Trump and replaced by Dan Driscoll. Over the last 2 weeks, the legacy media, which is incredibly hostile to Hegseth, has been posting puff pieces about Dan Driscoll and how he is a rising star at the Pentagon. Sources have told me that Jake Sullivan, the former national security advisor of the United States under Joe Biden, is a very close friend with Dan Driscoll. And they have been friends since they attended Yale Law School. Driscoll and Vice President Vance also met at Yale Law School, which is how Driscoll was nominated as Army Secretary. High-level sources at the Pentagon have confirmed to me that Sullivan has been planting stories in support of Driscoll because Sullivan wants Hegseth removed and replaced with Driscoll. Sullivan is worried Hegseth and President Trump are going to take action against the seditious six, the 6 Democrat lawmakers who are now facing federal inquiries and an FBI investigation after they recorded a video in November 2025 using U.S. military service members not to follow, urging U.S. military service members not to follow unlawful orders, a message President Trump and Pete Hegseth have called seditious. One of the seditious 6 is Democrat Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, the wife of Jake Sullivan, who goes by a different last name to hide the fact that she is married to Jake Sullivan. It is worth noting that Goodlander is a Naval Reserve intelligence officer, which means she could possibly face disciplinary action by Hegseth for her seditious behavior. Goodlander and Sullivan got married in 2015. Some of the guests at their wedding include Hillary Clinton, Lisa Monaco, Uma Abedin, Samantha Power, Victoria Nuland, and Anthony Blinken, all of whom are anti-Trump deep staters. It goes on and on and on. And it exposes how there appears to be an orchestrated coup happening to oust Pete Hegseth. So I decided to go out and do just a little bit more digging on who this guy is. Let's see if this is the right one. Is this the right one? Yeah. And wouldn't you know that a whole bunch of articles started popping up about Dan Driscoll and how he seemed to have just kind of marched his way through confirmation. As a matter of fact, Democrats really seem to like this guy. They liked him a lot. And he was confirmed 66 to 28, which was almost unheard of for Trump nominees. 66 to 28. There's a lot of people in the Democrat Party that really seem to like this guy. And now I think we know why. Nom, do you have that video? Can you pull that up of his interview?
Do we have it?
I got it. I got it. Hold on. I'll pull it up. You guys got to see this. So this is a video, an interview of Dan Driscoll being asked questions about how he views some of the important issues that Pete Hegseth has been tackling. Where is it? I know it's in here. Where'd you go?
That's why you don't rename things.
I didn't rename it. I dropped it in here a little bit late.
You guys, being on here with twins is hilarious.
Why?
Because you guys are always picking at each other, and it's really funny.
Where is it? I know I dropped it in here.
You're not going to get to it.
I'm going to send it back again. You guys have to see this. You have to see it. It's in here.
Isn't this the craziest thing? Why you're looking for that? This is just wild to me. I mean, the only reason these people are behaving as boldly as they are is because they know that the judges at the federal district court level will protect them. That's it. That's the bottom line. They know that they are protected.
And they have been for decades. Let's be real here. This has been going on for a very long time, and they've been getting away with it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they've been stopped from inside the government, inside the executive branch, from actually bringing charges or being able to investigate any of this stuff. Trump had all of this. Well, up until 2021, he had all of it, and the Russia collusion, the Crossfire Hurricane documents, which he declassified. He didn't have them at Mar-a-Lago. You guys understand. Everybody has to understand this. The entire Mar-a-Lago raid, all of it. One, there was the optics. Even though they hated the idea that they were going to set the precedent, that they're going to raid the former president, and then they clutched their pearls and freaked out when they did the same thing to Joe Biden. I mean, you guys set the precedent. But the entire point of the entire exercise was to go and retrieve the declassified Crossfire Hurricane documents, because it all goes back to the original sin. All of them. Did you find it yet? Patriot Dad, did you find it yet?
Well, it's not going to let me pull it up. No, it's not. I'm not muted. You guys hear me?
Your internet's broken. Kind of.
Hello?
Now your internet's broken. Oh, son of a gun. Well, we may have to wrap it from here. Patriot Dad is gone, having technical difficulties. Guys, just so you're aware, the video that he wanted to show you was a video of Dan Driscoll essentially complaining about.
I can hear you.
Mute him. Mute his ass. Essentially complaining because Pete Hegseth is ripping DEI out of the military root and branch. That's what it is. He is all in for the social experimentation that Obama and Biden were doing inside the military. Instead of pushing and forcing lethality, they were doing social experiments on how can we screw up a otherwise well-functioning United States military. So, can you hear us now?
That's right. Can you guys hear me now?
We can now.
I hear you just fine. You guys can hear me? All right. I'm sorry. It won't let me pull the video up. It keeps failing for some reason.
I just tried it.
Sucks here.
I did a better job than you would anyway.
Probably. Anyway, folks, listen up.
That's what I'm talking about.
There is a reason why they are trying to push Pete Hegseth out and replace him with this Dan Driscoll. Because if you go out and find these videos of him talking about how much he loves DEI and how he wants women in combat and doesn't have any problems with that kind of stuff, they are trying to install an Obama, Jake Sullivan crony in the Department of War. They are trying with all of their might and all of their power to stop Donald Trump from being able to disrupt their color revolution. That's all this effort has been over the last couple of weeks. That's the entire goal of the Seditious Six. That's the entire goal of this Brookings Institute meeting that happened back at the end of October. Their entire objective is to make sure there is nothing that can stop them from executing on step 7, which is a transfer of power. And the only thing standing in the way of that is us and the military, because every other agency that's responsible for it, including Republicans in both the House and the Senate, who are doing absolutely nothing to stop this, are letting it happen.
Well, so that puts me in a very interesting place, right? Because I mean, we're going to have to start hitting this midterm election hard, but how and why? Because these people are doing nothing. How do we get out there and get people to the polls? Because listen, that Tennessee 7 race that happened last night, you know, parts of Nashville and surrounding counties, 100,000 Trump voters stayed home. Only 40,000 Democrat voters or Harris voters stay home, right? That's not a bellwether at all. I mean, it's not an indicator of what's going to happen because Trump voters will come out in the midterms. But the question I have for the Republican Party is why the actual hell should we? The only reason that I can think of is because if we don't, President Trump and this country is over. That's the only reason for voters.
That is the argument. That is the argument. That's the position we have to take.
Yes. And Lisa and I have been discussing this as well, because we plan to talk about all of the states and all of the programs and all of the ways that your states are already captured and your local government are already captured so that people understand the urgency of this. It's everywhere, in every state, every red state, every blue state. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Folks, we're going to I think we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to hold our nose and vote for a Republican that may not be the perfect candidate in 2026. And then some of us are going to have to get off our asses and actually go run a race to take some of these loser seats. Nom's already thrown his hat in the ring, and he's going to, by the way, did you guys know I found more evidence of how much of a freaking loser this loser Wicker is down in Mississippi? This guy is terrible, awful. He's not a Republican. He's one of those Democrats who pretends to be a Republican so he can get elected in places where he wouldn't be able to get elected if he was, in fact, a Democrat. Yeah. So Nom's already said he's going to challenge him. We may hold him to that.
And his campaign slogan is Nom for fucking Senate.
That's right. and if I decide I want to run for Congress, although I actually have a decent Republican congressman here, we'll see. Mine might be Patriot Dad for effing Congress, because I won't use the real world.
I did. Your wife can be mad at me.
No, it can't be on my slogan, so I'll be effing Congress.
Mm-hmm.
For effing Congress.
Yeah, but his terms, he's not up till 2030. So
well, maybe you should run for the House first, and then run for the Senate.
I got other things I'm working on right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll give you some time.
Very, very, very big importance.
Folks, you guys are going to have to, some of y'all that are sitting in the comments that are staunch MAGA, that you want to see America first actually succeed, that you care about the future of this country, you're going to have to run for office, because we've got a bunch of freaking losers in the Republican Party who are colluding and participating with the seditious conspiracy and the color revolution.
But hold on. The number one requirement, the number one qualification you have to have for me to vote for you, for sure, but I think everyone should only vote for people that have never, ever, ever served in the government before. If you have zero experience in the government, you go straight to the top of the list. I'm voting for you.
Yeah, right. Especially in the intelligence community.
Yeah. By the way, we're going to have to eventually get around to doing our show on the new politics, because I think people need to understand that none of these folks would be in Congress right now were it not for an NGO that's getting money from George Soros to recruit them.
Well, listen, they're not slowing down, so we're just going to have to keep exposing them. I feel like we've got a show on Monday. Let's develop let's dedicate half the segment to it.
Yep. All right. Who wants to?
Let's keep exposing who these animals are. They're snakes. They're snakes. It's a pit of vipers. It's gross.
Mr. President.
Well, we're snake charmers. Okay.
Right.
We're going to charm these snakes. All right. We're going to save this country.
Mr. President.
Fucking heads off. Just chop their fucking heads off.
If you are in fact watching, and I think you are, it's time to start putting these people in jail. Let the process be the punishment for every single one of them. if you can't convict them all, I'm okay with that. But if it costs them a couple $100,000, a few $1 million to defend themselves, like they forced on you, let the process be the punishment. Because they would do it to every single one of us. They did it to you. And once these people get back into power, that's exactly what they intend on doing. Allowing the process to be the punishment.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You think your family's safe?
I went a little too early.
That's all right.
All right,
Let's
folks.
wrap it. We're long. Let's wrap it up.
We're way over, folks.
Good night,
This was
guys.
fun. We're going to come together and try to figure out how we can do more of this, either longer or more frequently. This was awesome. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you haven't liked and subscribed to all the places, do that over on Rumble, on YouTube, over on X. We need the
Send it to your
support.
sister, your brother, your son, your daughter, your mother, your grandparents. Send it to all of them. We need viewers.
And
if you want us to
subscribe.
do it more of these.
Subscribe, like,
It's free.
do
It's
all
free.
the things. It is free.
free.
It doesn't cost anything. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, whatever it's called on Rumble. I don't know. I've never been there.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, make sure you hit that button. Make sure you share. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you can get notifications when we go live.
That's right. All right. We're out. Later.
The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be.